I was standing in my kitchen, the warm afternoon sun streaming through the windows as I chopped vegetables for dinner. 6 years, 6 whole years, of peace, of building a life with my husband Marcus, of finally feeling safe in my own skin. The silence was golden, broken only by the gentle hum of our refrigerator and the distant sound of children playing outside. Then the doorbell rang. My knife froze mid-chop. Something about that sound felt wrong, urgent. Through the peephole, I saw her, Sophia, my golden child sister, standing on my doorstep with desperation written all over her face. My hands trembled as reality crashed down. Before we dive into this story, please let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Trust me, what happens next will completely change everything I thought I knew about my family, and you will not believe how this twisted tale unfolds. Growing up in suburban Ohio, I learned early that love was not distributed equally in our household. My mother Diana had her favorite, and it was never me. Sophia was 3 years older, with cascading blonde hair and eyes that could convince anyone of anything. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, while I was the scapegoat for every problem that plagued our dysfunctional family. From the time I could walk, Sophia perfected the art of manipulation. She would steal my toys, break them deliberately, then run crying to our mother claiming I had hurt her. Diana would storm into my room, her face red with anger, screaming about how I needed to be nicer to my sister. When I tried to explain what really happened, I was told I was lying, that I was jealous of Sophia's natural charm and beauty. The physical abuse started when I was around 7. Sophia would wait until our mother was busy, then corner me in my bedroom or the basement. She would pinch, scratch, and slap me, then immediately start crying loudly. When Diana came running, Sophia would sob that I had attacked her, and she was only defending herself. The welts and bruises on my small arms were dismissed as evidence of my aggression, not her cruelty. Our father tried to intervene occasionally, but Diana would turn on him with such venom that he eventually stopped trying. He worked longer and longer hours coming home, only to eat dinner in silence before retreating to his home office. When I was 12, he could not take it anymore. I remember the morning he left, his suitcase in hand, looking at me with such profound sadness that I thought my heart would break. After Dad left, Diana's bitterness consumed our house like a toxic fog. She blamed me for his departure, claiming that the stress of dealing with my behavior had driven him away. Sophia, now 15 and more beautiful than ever, became Diana's confidant and partner in making my life miserable. They would sit together at the kitchen table, whispering and laughing, while shooting pointed looks in my direction. School became my only refuge, but even there, Sophia found ways to torment me. She would spread rumors about me to her popular friends, who would then whisper and point when I walked down the hallways. She convinced other students that I was weird, that I made up stories for attention, that I could not be trusted. My few friendships crumbled under the weight of her social warfare. During my teenage years, the emotional abuse reached new heights. Sophia would steal my allowance, claiming she needed it more than I did. When I saved birthday money for months to buy a special dress for the school dance, I found it cut to shreds in my closet. Sophia denied everything, suggesting that perhaps I had done it myself in one of my attention-seeking episodes. The academic sabotage was particularly cruel. Sophia would sneak into my room and hide my homework assignments, delete important files from my computer, or tell me the wrong dates for major tests. When my grades suffered, Diana would lecture me about applying myself and living up to my potential. The gaslighting was constant and methodical. Anytime I tried to point out Sophia's behavior, I was told I was paranoid, that I needed to stop imagining conspiracies and take responsibility for my own problems. By the time I was 16, I had developed severe anxiety and depression. I felt like I was losing my mind, constantly questioning my own perceptions and memories. Sophia had become so skilled at her manipulations that even I began to wonder if I really was the problem. The isolation was complete. I had no allies, no one who believed me, no safe space anywhere. College could not come fast enough. When I turned 18, I escaped to Ohio State University on an academic scholarship that I had worked desperately to earn. For the first time in my life, I was free from the daily torment, able to breathe, without constantly looking over my shoulder. The relief was so overwhelming that I cried for hours in my dorm room, finally understanding what peace felt like. But even from a distance, my family continued to poison my life. During my sophomore year, Diana began dating Richard Wilson, a 45-year-old divorced businessman who seemed charming and successful. When I came home for Thanksgiving, I was surprised to find him sitting at our dinner table carving the turkey with the confidence of someone who belonged there. Richard was handsome in a polished corporate way, with silver hair and expensive suits. He brought Diana flowers, took her to fancy restaurants, and seemed to genuinely care about her happiness. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to hope that maybe this relationship would bring some stability to our chaotic household. However, I quickly noticed something disturbing. Sophia, now 20 and stunning in the way that turned heads wherever she went, was flirting shamelessly with Richard. She would lean close to him during conversations, touch his arm when she laughed at his jokes, and wear increasingly revealing outfits when he was around. Richard seemed uncomfortable with the attention, but he did not actively discourage it either. I mentioned my concerns to Diana during a private moment in the kitchen, but she waved them away dismissively. She claimed that Sophia was just being friendly, that I was reading too much into innocent interactions, because I could not stand to see her happy. The familiar sting of being dismissed cut deep, but I tried to push my worries aside. Over the following months, the dynamic between Sophia and Richard grew more unsettling. During family dinners, she would monopolize his attention with stories about her college experiences, her dating life, her dreams for the future. Richard would listen with an intensity that made me deeply uncomfortable, his eyes lingering on her face longer than appropriate. Diana seemed oblivious to what was happening right in front of her. She would beam with pride as Sophia charmed Richard, commenting on how wonderful it was that they got along so well. When I tried to express my concerns again, Diana accused me of being jealous that Sophia could form healthy relationships while I remained socially awkward and isolated. The breaking point came during my Christmas break of junior year. I had come home hoping for a peaceful holiday, perhaps even some progress in my relationship with my family. Instead, I walked into a nightmare that would haunt me forever. I had gone to the basement to retrieve some old photo albums for a project I was working on when I heard voices coming from the rec room. As I approached, I realized it was Sophia and Richard speaking in hushed, intimate tones. I froze behind the partially open door, my heart hammering in my chest, as I listened to them planning a secret meeting. What I witnessed next shattered any remaining illusions I had about my family. Through the crack in the door, I saw Sophia kiss Richard passionately, her hands tangled in his silver hair. He responded eagerly, pulling her closer, as she whispered something in his ear that made him groan with desire. They were so absorbed in each other that they did not notice me backing away in horror. I spent the rest of the evening in my room, nauseated and shaking. When I finally found the courage to confront Sophia privately the next morning, she looked at me with cold calculation before bursting into laughter. She told me I was just jealous, that no one wanted me, that I should mind my own business if I knew what was good for me. Desperate to protect Diana from this betrayal, I gathered my courage and told her what I had witnessed. The explosion that followed was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Diana screamed at me for 20 minutes straight, calling me a pathological liar, a manipulative attention seeker, and a spiteful person who could not bear to see others happy. When Richard arrived later that day, Diana tearfully told him about my accusations. He played his part perfectly, looking shocked and hurt that I would suggest such a thing. He claimed that I had always seemed troubled and that perhaps I was having some kind of mental health crisis that was causing me to imagine inappropriate interactions. The final insult came when Diana decided to reward Sophia for her loyalty during this difficult time by buying her a brand new car. As Sophia hugged our mother and thanked her for always believing in her, she caught my eye over Diana's shoulder and smirked with triumphant malice. That night, I made the most difficult decision of my life. I realized that I would never win against their coordinated campaign of manipulation and abuse. No matter what evidence I presented, no matter how clearly I explained what was happening, I would always be the problem in their eyes. Sophia would always be the golden child, and I would always be the scapegoat. I spent the next week quietly gathering my belongings and making arrangements to never return. When I left for school after the holidays, I blocked their phone numbers, deleted them from social media, and changed my address with the university. I was done being their victim. Diana's final words to me were particularly painful. She told me not to come crawling back when I realized how wrong I was, that I would regret throwing away my family over my own jealousy and mental problems. Sophia's last text message was equally cutting, claiming that I would regret my decision because I needed them more than they needed me. But as I drove away from that house for the last time, I felt something I had never experienced before: relief. The weight of their constant abuse lifted from my shoulders, and for the first time in my life, I could breathe freely. 6 years passed in blessed peace. I finished college, started a career in marketing, and met Marcus, a kind and patient man who showed me what healthy love looked like. We built a beautiful life together, filled with trust, respect, and genuine affection. I learned to laugh again, to feel safe in my own home, to believe that I deserved happiness. Then came that fateful afternoon when my carefully constructed peace was shattered by a doorbell. Standing on my doorstep was Sophia, but she looked nothing like the confident, beautiful woman who had tormented my childhood. Her designer clothes were wrinkled and stained, her perfectly styled hair was disheveled, and her makeup was smeared from crying. When I reluctantly opened the door, she immediately launched into a dramatic performance that would have been worthy of an Academy Award. She threw her arms around me, sobbing about how much she had missed me, how family should stick together through everything, how she had made terrible mistakes and wanted to make amends. I stood rigid in her embrace, feeling nothing but disgust at her manipulative display. When she finally pulled back, she looked at me with those same calculating eyes I remembered from childhood, searching for any sign of weakness she could exploit. Sophia claimed that she had grown and changed over the years, that she understood now how much pain she had caused me. She begged for forgiveness, insisting that blood was thicker than water and that we needed each other. The words sounded rehearsed, like a script she had practiced in front of a mirror. Then she revealed the real reason for her visit. Diana had kicked her out of the house following a misunderstanding with Richard. As she spoke, her composure cracked, and the truth came tumbling out in a torrent of self-pity and justification. Richard, she explained with a mixture of shame and defiance, was actually her biological father. Diana had kept this secret for decades, raising Sophia as her daughter, while maintaining a relationship with the man who had abandoned them both when Sophia was a baby. When Richard returned years later, posing as a potential boyfriend, Diana had welcomed him back without telling either of her daughters about his true identity. The implications of what Sophia was telling me were horrifying beyond comprehension. She had been engaging in an incestuous relationship with her own father, while Diana either remained willfully ignorant or actively enabled the sick dynamic. The family I had escaped was even more twisted and damaged than I had ever imagined. Sophia seemed to expect sympathy for her predicament, as if she were the victim of circumstances beyond her control. She painted herself as a confused young woman who had been manipulated by older, more experienced people. She claimed that she had only recently learned the truth about Richard's identity and was disgusted by what had transpired. But I could see through her performance. This was just another manipulation, another attempt to position herself as the victim while avoiding responsibility for her choices. The Sophia who stood before me was the same cruel, selfish person who had made my childhood a living hell. Time had not changed her fundamental nature. When I told her firmly that it was too late for apologies, that 6 years was too long to wait for a reconciliation, her mask began to slip. The sweet, remorseful sister act faded, replaced by flashes of the old anger and entitlement. She reminded me that she was my only sister, that I owed her loyalty because of our shared blood. I stood my ground, explaining that I had built my own family now, one based on love and respect, rather than obligation and abuse. I told her that I did not owe her anything, that her presence in my life had only brought pain and chaos. For the first time in my life, I felt strong enough to reject her attempts at manipulation. Sophia's desperation grew more apparent as she realized that her usual tactics were not working. She threatened to contact Marcus to cause trouble in my new life, to make me regret turning my back on family. But I remained firm, telling her that she needed to leave my property immediately and never return. It was then that she played her final, most vicious card. With a cruel smile that I remembered all too well, she told me that I should know the truth about my husband before I got too comfortable in my perfect little life. The bombshell she dropped next hit me like a physical blow. Sophia claimed that she had slept with Marcus during a business trip he had taken to Chicago the previous year. She described intimate details about his appearance, his habits, his preferences, painting a picture that seemed convincing in its specificity. My world tilted on its axis, as trust issues I thought I had overcome came rushing back. All the old insecurities, all the familiar patterns of betrayal, seemed to be repeating themselves in my adult life. For a moment I was that terrified, helpless child again, watching her older sister destroy everything good in her world. Sophia watched my face with satisfaction, feeding on my pain like a vampire drinking blood. She told me that I could never escape her, that she would always find a way to be part of my life, that I was naive to think I could build happiness without her permission. Just as I felt myself beginning to crumble under the weight of Sophia's revelation, I heard the sound of Marcus's car in our driveway. He was coming home early from work, probably planning to surprise me with flowers or dinner from our favorite restaurant. The timing could not have been more perfect or more terrible. Marcus walked through the front door with his usual warm smile, calling out a greeting, before he noticed the tense scene unfolding in our entryway. When he saw Sophia standing there, his expression changed to one of polite confusion. He had never met any of my family members respecting my decision to maintain no contact without pressing for explanations. Sophia's confident smirk began to fade as she took in Marcus's genuine bewilderment. I watched her carefully, looking for any sign of recognition between them, any indication that her claims about their affair were true. Instead, I saw nothing but confusion on both sides. With my heart hammering in my chest, I decided to confront the situation head-on. I told Marcus about Sophia's accusations, watching his face for any telltale signs of guilt or recognition. Instead of the shame or defensiveness I might have expected from a cheating husband, Marcus looked utterly baffled. He turned to Sophia with genuine curiosity and asked who she was, explaining that he had never seen her before in his life. Sophia's composure began to crack as she realized that her carefully constructed lie was falling apart in real time. She sputtered something about Chicago, about the business conference, about how they had met at the hotel bar and spent the night together. Marcus listened to her increasingly frantic claims with growing amazement, then calmly explained that he had never been to Chicago for business in his entire career. As a remote software developer, Marcus had no need for business travel. He worked from our home office, attending meetings virtually and collaborating with clients through video calls. The idea that he would attend a conference in Chicago was so absurd that I almost laughed despite the emotional turmoil of the moment. Sophia's lie crumbled completely as Marcus provided details about his work schedule, his daily routines, his complete lack of travel over the past several years. It became clear that she had confused him with someone else entirely, or more likely had fabricated the entire story based on assumptions and guesswork. The realization that Sophia had been lying hit me like a wave of cold relief. She was so desperate to hurt me, so determined to destroy my happiness, that she had not even bothered to research her target properly. Her cruelty had always been random and sloppy, driven more by malice than by careful planning. Marcus, understanding the gravity of what had just transpired, asked Sophia to leave our home immediately. His voice was calm but firm, making it clear that he would not tolerate anyone trying to manipulate or hurt his wife. The protective instinct he showed in that moment filled me with gratitude and love. Sophia made one last desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative, claiming that Marcus was lying to protect himself. But the damage was done. Her credibility was shattered. Her manipulation exposed her power over me, finally broken. As she realized that her final gambit had failed spectacularly, Sophia's composure collapsed entirely. She screamed threats and insults as Marcus escorted her toward the door, her beautiful face twisted with rage and desperation. The neighbors had begun to notice the commotion, adding public humiliation to her defeat. She left our driveway with empty threats echoing behind her, her dignity in tatters, and her manipulative power finally neutralized. For the first time in my life, I had witnessed Sophia facing real consequences for her actions, real rejection of her toxic behavior. After she was gone, Marcus and I sat together on our couch, talking through what had just happened. He listened patiently as I explained the history of abuse, the years of manipulation, the decision to cut contact. He understood why Sophia's lies had shaken me so deeply, why trust was still a fragile thing for me, despite our strong marriage. That conversation brought us closer together than ever before. Marcus reassured me of his love and commitment, helping me process the trauma of seeing Sophia again, while affirming that our life together was built on a foundation of honesty and respect. In the weeks that followed, I learned that Sophia had eventually moved away from our area, apparently giving up on her attempts to reinsert herself into my life. Diana never reached out to apologize or explain, maintaining the same stubborn denial that had characterized her parenting throughout my childhood. The experience taught me a valuable lesson about the nature of toxic relationships and the importance of maintaining boundaries. Some people never change no matter how much time passes or how many chances they are given. Protecting yourself from their influence is not selfish or cruel. It is necessary for your mental health and happiness. I realize that family is not about biological connections or shared history. Real family consists of people who choose to love and support each other, who build each other up, instead of tearing each other down. Marcus and I had created our own family, one based on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than obligation and manipulation. The peace I had found in cutting contact with my biological family was not something to feel guilty about. It was a gift I had given myself, the foundation upon which I had built a life of happiness and fulfillment. Sophia's unexpected visit had only confirmed that I had made the right choice all those years ago. True healing came not from confrontation or reconciliation with my abusers, but from accepting that some relationships are too toxic to salvage. Walking away from people who consistently hurt you is not giving up. It is choosing to prioritize your own well-being and growth. As I reflected on everything that had happened, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought me to this point. The little girl who had once cowered in fear of her older sister was gone, replaced by a strong woman who could stand up for herself and protect the life she had worked so hard to build. I hope that sharing my story will help others who are struggling with similar family dynamics. You have the right to remove toxic people from your life, even if they share your DNA. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away and never look back. Real family supports your growth and happiness. Anything less is not worth preserving. Have you ever had to cut contact with toxic family members? How did you find the strength to prioritize your own well-being over family obligations? Please share your experiences in the comments below, and do not forget to like this video if my story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family trauma and building healthy relationships. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they are not alone in their struggles. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you all the courage to choose your own happiness and peace. Remember, you deserve to be surrounded by people who lift you up, not tear you down.